and welcome to this special episode of Focus On with myself, Palesa Mufokeng. As you can see behind me, we are attending the Africa Partnership Conference happening right here in Mauritius, where government and private sector players are talking about how they can accelerate intra-Africa trade. I've spoken to some of the key voices from Absa, and here's what they had to say. Thank you so much, gentlemen, to both of you for joining us. As the main platinum sponsor of the African Partnership Conference, why was it important to play such a key role in this conference? As Absa Bank Mauritius, I'm asking this question to you, Ravin.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. I think our philosophy on the continent, including Mauritius, is to make sure we contribute to the economic development of the country in which we're present. We've been on the continent for a long time. And for us, making sure that we play a key role in the economy is part of the DNA, is what we do, including making sure that the different sectors of the economy is supported for the banking industry. But as Mauritius play also a key role for investment into Africa. Mauritius plays an active role for investment from many continents into Africa. I think it's important as well for us then to ensure that we are a banking partner for those investors. But also what we're seeing over the last 5-6 years is most of the big conglomerates in Mauritius are trying to expand outside Mauritius, and Africa is clearly a destination for them to look at how do they grow their economy, their business. And in that, we want to be a partner. And we want to be a partner because clearly we bank these companies in Mauritius, but because also our footprint in Africa, and making sure that we support the Mauritian entities going into Africa, not only by funding them, but also supporting them in those markets with the knowledge we've got there and with the presence we have in this country. So to go back to this conference, which I think is important, and the theme is unity and partnership. And we really believe in both, in unity. We also believe in partnership and supporting our clients. So it's a conference that goes in that direction in making sure that within the continent, people are partnering more and more. And for us, working with EDB on this was important. And this is sometimes you have to put money where your mouth is. Thank you.
So just to stay on with you, Mauritius has firmly positioned itself as a gateway for Africa. How does Absa Bank, or how is Absa Bank leveraging this position to facilitate cross-boundary collaborations and investments in the region?
Yeah, and again, through our CIB strategy, which is a Pan-African one, is ensure that we follow clients across the continent and we support them across the continent. We also we help in terms of the intra-Africa trade and inbound and outbound Africa trade, and I think with the experience we've had over the last so many years, 100 years in our case, and the knowledge of a number of the trade requirements and facilities that we see, Absa is playing a key role in that by connecting different players, understanding the underlying requirement for trade and investment, and supporting the different players in that. As mentioned before, I think what we're trying to do in Mauritius as a country first is to build a platform to allow investors a safe route and a safe place to invest through the different trade and investment agreements Mauritius have with African countries. So leveraging on that, I think Absa Mauritius, given also we're present on the continent, to support our partners in those trade or investment requirements.
Thank you, Palace, and thanks for this opportunity to discuss very important subject for us, because it's at the core of our purpose. You know our purpose is empowering Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time. This is one story. This is one story in which we have a lot of different stakeholders. We've got the government here, we've got development financial institutions, we've got multilaterals, financial institutions like ourselves, and lots of different businesses, all eager and I think sharing passion in terms of how can we develop this economy, and this economy being this continent which is very blessed with lots of natural resources, talented people, youthful population, and yet struggling with things like poverty, inequality, lack of skills, lack of infrastructure, both physical, digital infrastructure. All these are challenges which we believe are important in terms of what is required to work together to improve the livelihoods of people in this continent through economic growth and development, but inclusive growth. And therefore, as a financial institution, if you think about purpose where we say empowering Africa's tomorrow and adding together, it is very aligned to the unity and partnerships that is in the theme for this conference, and something that we see across the continent, that the needs are so deep that we need to work together in terms of how do we support businesses. If I use an example of, say, small and medium enterprises, the risks are high, but it is our obligation as a financial institution where when we think about doing business, right, we also have to do good. And the two are not mutually exclusive. So we have to do good in the sense that if I use an example where we've focused on, say, SME segments and said women in business, for instance, youth coming into business, those are areas that require more support and thinking and innovation in how you tackle those areas. So we've already got partnerships that are working in West Africa, in East Africa, Southern Africa, where we've partnered with different institutions to manage the risks, but also how do we invest in terms of capability of those institutions to manage and access markets, better governance, transparency, all the things that make your risk appetite higher to be able to support them. And it's those type of examples where we believe a conference like this, where we can sit and just share ideas and experiences, it makes the continent richer, and we know when the continent is richer, we all benefit. So for us, it's a no-brainer. It's aligned to why we exist and aligned to our purpose.
So, with intra-African trade in Africa, it's at levels too low, and one of the main hindrances has been infrastructure. In your view, how can we address this challenge in order to reach our goals?
Yeah, and that's why that's one of the areas that we are very keen and working in terms of working with different partners to see. And you see, when we talk about infrastructure, it will be different infrastructure. Before, it used to be all the usual things like ports, roads, those type of infrastructure that were required, the physical infrastructure. But now you also have to think about digital infrastructure, because as technology evolves, that becomes very, very important in terms of how you do business. This is not an area which one institution, no matter how big, can resolve. The infrastructure needs for this continent are huge, and it does impact the economic growth for the continent. So a conference like this helps in terms of ensuring that we can all influence having the right policies in different countries which are aligned, and listening to the Secretariat for the Continental Free Trade Area, it is very encouraging in terms of the direction of travel, because that's very important in the sense that as private sector, we play a huge role in terms of how can we support that financing and support in building that infrastructure. But the policy framework itself is so important across the continent, and therefore to see the governments getting together and that direction of travel will be so important, that the thought leadership that is required to make a difference in this continent is something which you constantly have to evaluate what is going on, what more do we need to do, and come up with new ideas on what is required in that area.
What areas of collaboration or opportunities have you identified here in Mauritius, coming from South Africa? This is a question to both of you. And from Mauritius, what areas of opportunities have you identified from South Africa? So basically, South Africa, what are you bringing to the table to Mauritius, and vice versa?
My mindset is more at a continental level as Chief Executive for the regional operations. So when I do speak, I will leave in terms of the bilateral type of arrangements, and Ravin will talk to a lot of what's going on between Mauritius and South Africa. But your question, I think, is pertinent across the continent. in the sense that all the treaties that are being signed, the agreements on how you can ease trade and investment, they're so important because I think Africa is stronger united than it is divided. And therefore, when we start thinking about trade and the benefits of trade, the investment that we see, a lot of our clients now are thinking about how can they invest into a bigger market across the continent. These are all areas that we try to facilitate and support our customers to be able to prosper, as well as then have a partner who can even make the introductions where they want to operate in the different countries.
We don't necessarily have a strategy only to look at SA. I think it's more of an African strategy. We've got from Mauritius, inbound and outbound. But clearly South Africa is a key partner, is a big partner. I think if your question is about South Africa, I think trade is a key one. Institutional collaboration is the other. We work very closely with SAB, with a number of institutions there to enhance governance and so on. But also, I think from an individual perspective, as you would know, there's a lot of South African now in Mauritius. And we're making sure that we're supporting them, both from a personal perspective, but also for their business. I think there's a lot we can do together. Some people think we're in competition. We are not. I think there's a lot we can do together. And being present in South Africa and in Mauritius under the same brand, I think gives it a seamless kind of solution for individuals, but also institutions. But I mentioned, I think our agenda is broader than South Africa. It's more to see how do we play a role. You know, we've done that in the past with India. If you look at the investment in India, a lot of them have gone through Mauritius. So we've got the experience of channeling investment into different places, and a lot of the corridors of investment, be it the US, Europe, also Asia more and more now, of investment going into Africa is going through Mauritius, and we believe we can play a big role in that channeling of investment.
Okay. Now, just as a parting shot, just in 5 words, what message do you hope to drive home from this conference as Mauritius and as South Africa? I
think for us is collaboration. I think partnership and looking at how do we support each other, I think is key. I think there's a lot that we can do South-South collaboration, and I think there is a lot we can do, and including, as Xavier mentioned, skill development, talent development, and making sure that we are doing the best for ourselves.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, to me, the whole idea, if you think about it, Africa being a bigger economy with lots of talent, as Ravina said, but an economy that has got huge opportunity for us to all work together to be able to prosper. So I think working together, working hand in hand, I think that's the only way we can move forward in terms of making sure that we can have a very prosperous economy and we can have a lasting legacy in everything that we do.
And that's it for day 1 of the Africa Partnership Conference. We still have some more content for you, so stay tuned for day 2.